Sarah thought her cattle were sick. Then she realized something far more disturbing. They weren't refusing the food. They were warning her about what was happening underneath her farm. For 3 days, Sarah watched her cattle walk toward their feed troughs, sniff the food, and suddenly turn away. These were the same cattle that normally charged toward the feed the moment they heard her tractor. But now, they wouldn't touch it. Not one bite. Sarah changed the feed. They refused it. She brought out fresh hay. They refused that too. She even tried their favorite grain. Nothing. And then she noticed something that sent chills through her. Every single cow kept looking toward the exact same place. An old section of pasture Sarah hadn't used in years. At first, she thought it was strange behavior. Then one cow suddenly backed away from the fence and stared directly at the ground. Sarah followed its gaze. There was nothing there. Or at least, that's what she thought. She called her veterinarian. He examined the cattle carefully. Their temperatures were normal. Their breathing was normal. There were no obvious signs of infection, poisoning, or serious illness. The vet finally asked Sarah a simple question. Has anything changed around the farm? Sarah thought about it. The feed hadn't changed. The cattle hadn't changed. But something else had. That old pasture. So Sarah grabbed her boots and walked toward it. The cattle watched her the entire time. As she got closer, she noticed something unusual. The grass around one particular area looked different. It was greener. Much greener. Sarah stepped closer. Then she noticed the ground was wet. She knelt down and touched it. Water was slowly rising through the soil, but there hadn't been any rain. Sarah followed the wet trail through the grass. It led directly to an old underground irrigation line. She had almost forgotten it existed. The previous owner had installed the system years earlier, but most of it had been disconnected. Sarah uncovered a section of the pipe. It was cracked, and something was leaking from it. She immediately realized this could explain the cattle's strange behavior. But there was one problem. The water had been traveling through soil that had been exposed to agricultural chemicals over many years. Sarah contacted a specialist and had the water and surrounding soil tested. The results were enough to make her stop everything. The area was contaminated. Not enough to immediately knock the cattle down, but enough to potentially make them sick if they continued drinking from or grazing around that area. Suddenly, Sarah understood what had been happening. The cattle weren't being stubborn. They weren't suddenly becoming picky eaters. They had detected something she couldn't see. Something in their environment smelled or tasted wrong to them, and their refusal to eat had been the first clue. Sarah immediately fenced off the area. She repaired the damaged irrigation system and removed the contaminated material. The surrounding pasture was tested again before she allowed the cattle anywhere near it. Then something remarkable happened. A few days later, Sarah walked out with a fresh load of feed. The cattle came running. The same animals that had refused almost everything for days were suddenly pushing toward the trough. They were eating normally again, and this time they weren't staring toward the old pasture. Sarah had spent 3 days searching for a problem inside the cattle, but the problem had been outside them the entire time. And that's what makes this story so fascinating. Farm animals can't tell us something is wrong with that water. They can't explain that a smell has changed or that something tastes different, but they can react. Sometimes violently, sometimes subtly. And if you know your animals well enough, those small changes can become important warnings. Sarah learned one lesson she says she'll never forget. When every animal suddenly refuses something they've eaten for years, don't just look at the food. Look at what they're looking at. Because the answer might be somewhere you never thought to search.